Hello, friends. Welcome back to the School of Self-Worth. I'm your host, Nicole Song, and this is our very first episode of 2025. So happy New Year to all my listeners out there. I'm going to start off this episode and this fresh place that we're in with some full disclosure. I used to really despise New Year's. I hated everything associated with it. I hated the build up to the end of the year. I hated the pressure in January to try to stay on track with whatever goals I had set or resolutions I had set. So it took me many years to get over this. And I wanted to do a simple episode today to talk to you about how to release that pressure, set yourself up for success in 2025, and most importantly, how to get paid for your passion. This is the main framework that I teach. So I'm so excited to really dig in today to talk about having a life where you thrive in 2025. So before we get going, if you are a high achieving Asian American corporate leader who wants the exact step by step to reverse negative cultural conditioning holding you back at work so you can finally get paid for your passion, DM me paid at Nicole Song on Instagram. I've got something over there just for you. Okay, let's dig into this awesome topic. All right, friends. So if you talked to me probably a decade ago, right around the new year, I had a pretty solid pattern going where I was usually in hiding from dealing with the end of the year or totally faking it. That was also my other go to. Um, I was most likely faking it, but, I often wished that I was at home because I hated the new year so much. So, what I hated was the pressure. I hated the pressure that the end of the year had to be perfect, and it had to be perfect so that the start of the year was perfect. And so I felt like, oh my gosh, I have to go to the exact right party. I have to do things exactly the right way. But I also was really fixated at the end of the year on everything that I didn't get done, the things that went wrong in my life that year. So, like if I was single, I was wishing I was in a relationship. If I was in a relationship, I was wishing I was married. If I was married, I was wishing we had a house and a kid, and so on. That's just one example. It also came up in my own career. Like if I wasn't where I wanted to be in my career, I wasn't at the newspaper I wanted to be at, or if I wasn't as far along in my yoga career as I wanted to be, I was fixated on that at the end of the year. And then came the actual holiday and the pressure of going to the perfect party or having the most fun or celebrating what New Year's is supposed to be about. And then on the flip side of that was New Year's Day, which for me was probably the worst because should I polar bear plunge? Should I go to yoga? Should I run? Like, should I get every tiny bit of journaling done by the end of the New Year's Day to make sure I was completely prepared for the new year? It was so much pressure. So you can probably see why I did not like it. And if you relate to what I'm talking about, this is the perfect episode for you because I want you to be able to enter this year feeling calm, grounded, and like you are on track for your life because that's what we're really here to do with this episode. But I will say this at the same time, like while I was feeling all this pressure around the year and the new year, I also had some big dreams. Like I had so many things I wanted to get done. I've always been a high achiever who really like nose to the grindstone on everything in my life. But I had the worst time sorting out the difference between pursuing my dreams and beating myself up when I didn't get there fast enough. So here's my question for you. Do you wish that you had a crystal ball that could predict what happens this year and that it's full of only the good stuff? Like, this is a year you finally get paid for your passion. You have so much space for your personal life, and you feel like you are thriving, not surviving. Because there is a way to actually start doing this. Over the years, I have learned and perfected how to lead a life where your dreams actually come true and then some. And I'm going to share with you the exact two-step process today. A bonus for those of you who feel stressed by resolutions. I don't do resolutions. I do, however, believe very deeply in dreams and goals. So, despite my torturous history with the new year, I now love it. Like, I love the bookend that you get with the end of the year and the fresh start you get with a new calendar year. And I also really will say, I believe this deeply, that you can do this on a daily basis. We just, as a culture and society, do it all together at the end of a calendar year. So I also just love that opportunity to take a moment to pause, to look at what matters to you, and then to make a shift. But let's talk about how I used to try to set goals in the new year. So I almost always had a New Year's goal like everyone else, like do yoga 6 days a week, cut sugar for the month, stop drinking alcohol, meditate daily. Those only lasted as long as the program I was in. Because accountability definitely works, by the way. Like it really, really helps to be with other people doing the same thing. But once those programs ended, typically so did my goal. And the stats back me up. Like most people who set a resolution or a goal at the beginning of January are pretty much done with it, or it's like disappeared by the third week. It might even be shorter than that for some people. So it's like a lot of us really struggle to maintain the goals that we set. And so I was like everybody else, I would often beat myself up. I'd feel like a failure. And then by the end of February, the weather was still dreary and I was often despondent and maybe even a little bit depressed. If this cycle resonates on some level or feels familiar, then you are in exactly the right place. But here was the real problem. I was approaching this all wrong. I was coming in from a place of lack and of scarcity. I was approaching it like something I had to fix. Like there was some part of me that was not enough, like cut sugar because you're not skinny enough, work out more because you're not strong enough, eat a certain way because you're not healthy enough. And while that can be a way to initially motivate yourself, it's not a long term way of doing anything. And I was attracting now this energy that I was not enough because I had this scarcity feeling all the time. And that just keeps bringing in more and more of that not enough. It's how the law of attraction works. Instead of focusing my energy on what I truly wanted, and then that would start to attract the energy of more than enough in my life. It's like going to a restaurant and you really want to order the pasta, but instead of ordering the pasta, you order the chicken. And then you're kind of mad when your meal comes in, it's chicken and it's not pasta. Right? You're going to get what you order, you're going to get what you're asking for, but you have to make sure you're asking for the thing you really want. And a lot of the reasons Asian American women in particular tend to do this is because of cultural conditioning you learned growing up. So we'll be talking about that more today because that is a huge topic. I'm only going to get into a little bit of that, but there is so much more to explore with that for all Asian American women. And so today we're going to talk about the very first steps that you're going to want to take to really get clear for how to get paid for your passion. It's part of my framework, the Get Paid for Your Passion framework. And it covers you literally from start to finish, the whole framework. Today, we are going to talk about the start. We're talking about the first initial steps to take. And we're going to begin in a really fun place because we're going to start with the two mistakes, the biggest mistakes that you're making that are preventing you from truly having your dreams come true in 2025. So, this first mistake I'm going to talk about, I see this one all the time. It's pretty much every client I have coming in comes in with this one. And that's that they don't know what they want. This is what they always tell me. They know they don't want to feel stressed. They don't want to feel overwhelmed. They don't want to work on vacation. So that's really awesome, but that's never telling me what they do want, right? So it's the same as like getting in your car to go somewhere, but you don't know where, right? So if you get into the car and you don't know where you're going, you can't put it on the map, and then you just sit there in the driveway. Think about it. Like if you have no clarity of direction, how can you motivate and start to put action and momentum in the direction you want to go? Like for me, if I'm hungry and I get in the car, I just feel stressed and aimless and I just go to what's familiar routine. You also, and like you want to start to understand what it is that you want. And if you probably also grew up this way, let's be clear. So Asian families tend to prioritize the collective. So you just do what you're supposed to please your family, to make everybody happy. So when I figured out I was going to be a journalist, I was so good at following the ladder of journalism. I knew exactly what to do because I just did what was required of me instead of stopping in to check and ask myself if this was what I really wanted. And I really do think if I had stopped and asked myself that, I might have been kind of afraid of that answer. So I just kept mindlessly doing it. Like I knew that probably going to New York wasn't really what I wanted to do. Like the New York Times is the pinnacle in journalism, but if the New York Times had come calling, would I have said no? I don't know that I could have said no. So it's an interesting place to start to play. Like, what do you want? What you don't want? And really, when my journalism career imploded and no longer felt feasible, I was a miserable, crying mess. Like, I could not handle this life where I didn't know what was next, right? Like, all I knew is like I no longer wanted journalism. And then I felt completely stuck. And I had no idea how to run my own life because I had never really considered whether this was what I wanted to do anymore until it became something I hated doing. So this is the first mistake. So if you're in that place where you're like, I don't really know what I want next, that's the one we want to clean up first. The second mistake, this one is also such a big one. And many of my clients in Your Clear Calling, gosh, we spend like the whole time working on this over and over again because it's such a big one. This one is that you are attached to your goal. So, like some of you have been trying to get a promotion, and I talk to my clients constantly about not being attached to the outcome because for so many of them, I have found this to be true. The second they stop being attached to the promotion is the moment they get the promotion. Why? Because they stop trying to control an outcome. And you probably got this. You picked this up from parents who never praised you but had super high expectations. And the only way to feel loved was to hit the goal. So you just put everything you had into hitting those goals. You got intense about it. You gripped really hard. You controlled because that was the only way you understood how to do it. And to get that goal ultimately of feeling loved by your family. But attachment can also start other things running, other programs like fear of failure or imposter syndrome, where you worry you don't know if you're going to yourself without reaching those goals. This is a very contracted state energetically, and it will definitely stall you out and it will keep your dreams from happening. And when you get so dead set on a goal like that, the real problem is you cannot see anything else. You are totally stuck in the direction that you're going. You're trying to control it. And all of a sudden, you're cutting off so much else that could be out there. And we're going to talk about what you're cutting off when we get into how to get out of this. But it's really important to understand that attachment only brings that energy into a very stuck place. It's only one way. The goal, even though the goal and what's intended for you might be totally different from what you think. And this is really important for us to get through. And people who are so smart, which I know all of you are, really get stuck on this because we always think that we can problem solve our way through anything that's going on in our lives. And the truth is, there are certain things that we actually cannot fix ourselves. And so when we are attached to it, we want to learn to detach. So, what is a high achieving girl to do? Like, this is straightforward. A lot of the stuff I'm going to share with you. But again, even most of the super motivated women in my course really need a lot of support with this. So, I'm going to lay out the basics here for you. So, the first one is the flip. So, if you don't know what you want, the key is to start to figure out what you do want. And you might be like, well, Nicole, that sounds easy, but I actually have tried to do that and it's quite hard. It is hard and it's not hard, right? If we know the exact way to do it, which I cover in Your Clear Calling, it's actually not as hard as you think. And it's important for you to recognize this pattern in yourself. You need to know where you're going so that you can feel really clear and feel really connected. And you also have to know why you're doing it. So let's go back to the restaurant example. Like if I'm going to go get food and I'm just like, I have to figure it out, it feels very stressful. But if I know I'm going to my absolute favorite restaurant or a place that I'm dying to try, I am so clear and I'm so excited and I cannot wait to go. We map it, get in the car, like, ooh, boom, we know exactly what's going to happen. Goals are like that. They have to be specific and it has to feel really aligned to you, not something you're doing because you think you're supposed to or because other people told you that this is a good goal. Like I was saying in journalism, I used to climb the ladder because that's what you were supposed to do. And I rarely asked myself if this is what I wanted. I just did it because that's what the rule said. This is how you get a job at a big metropolitan newspaper or climb the ladder. If you do it, and I learned this as a kid, we all learned this as a kid. Do your homework, then you'll get good grades. Get good grades, do the activities, then you'll go to a great college. Go to a great college, get good grades, get a good job, make some money, life will work out. Except those are always still goals set by other people, like set by your family or set by society. And they may not be anything related to what you really want. And so for myself, once I started to pay attention, I realized I really did have my own goals independent of the ones that other people had set out for me. Like writing a book was an interesting one because I knew so many journalists who wanted to write a book. And I was like, I will never be that person. I have zero interest in writing a book. But when I really gave myself the time to get clear on it, I recognized I did want to write a book. And I didn't want to write one out of reaction. I wanted to because I just heard that very clear call for myself. And when I was really honest, it's true. I did really want to. And that's how I got my first book deal, literally from a surprise email in my inbox. Miracles happen when you are clear on what you want. And the other thing that you really have to know is when you're clear on what you want, you also need to combine it with the next piece of this, which is detachment. This is like the pinnacle place to hang out. Like, this is where, honestly, the cool people are hanging out because this is so monumental for living a really thriving, clear, happy life. It's not what I knew as a kid. I will say this. As a kid, I learned to be very attached because, like I mentioned, that's how I felt recognized. It's how I felt loved. When I achieved, that's when my parents, would praise me or say something. They actually didn't praise me, but they would say something to me or recognize it. But now I really know the truth. Detachment gets you so much more than you realize. When you detach from a goal, that's when miraculous things can occur that you are now leaving room for. Because when we're attached, we're not leaving room for those miraculous things. So, like when I got detached from writing a book, so I heard the call to write a book. I said, okay, that's what I know I want to do. And I ended up quitting a job at the time I had at a big yoga company to do it. So I was slogging away. I took a writing class and I was Googling how to get book deals. I did not know how any of this was going to occur. And I kind of was like, wow, this is going to be a pretty tough goal. But I was just doing it. Like I was just, all right. I was like, all right, I will just keep trying to do this. And 4 months later, I got an email in my inbox with the book deal. But the funny thing about this book deal is it wasn't a memoir like I thought it was going to be. It was for writing about yoga. At the time, I was like, I don't really know if I want to write a book about yoga. But then I had to pay attention and say, okay, all I said is I want to write a book. You now have the opportunity to become a published author, to learn about writing a book, to learn about publishing and marketing a book, which is actually what I needed to learn. And so once I could see that and I was detached that it had to be my way, then I could say yes, which is how I got my first books, Yoga for Hikers and Yoga for Climbers. And also that led to my third book. And this is what I mean. You don't actually know what you need to know. Like I didn't know all the things I needed to know about publishing and marketing a book that I learned from that very first book deal. Because when you're attached, you also make it mean something about yourself. You're like, it has to be a certain way. Like I could have made it mean that I was not going to be a legit author because I was writing about yoga instead of a memoir. Instead of just being like, nope, it's just time for me to learn and to grow and expand from this experience. Because here is the truth. Your job as a human is to grow. Think about the last job you had, or maybe even your current job, and how it feels when you're not growing and you feel stalled out and a little bit bored. And then think about when you are challenged and you're in a project where you're like, oh, wow, like I really have to stretch myself and how that feels. Humans are designed to grow. And when we don't grow, we start to get itchy and we feel challenged, like we need to go do something that's going to push us a little bit harder. And so to me, I'm like, well, stretching through a goal is one of the foundational ways that we can expand ourselves. So when we are detached, that's what gives us really this big opportunity of the stretch. And when you finally reach that goal, I promise the reason that it is so sweet when you finally get there is because of the expansion you experience along the way. It's never because of the goal itself. At its heart, your goals are a way for you to be the person that you want to be. Because achieving it's not going to automatically make you a worthy person, because that's how imposter syndrome starts. Like you think, oh, once I get to the goal, once I write that book, you might be like, I'm not worthy of writing this book. I'm not worthy of marketing this book. Who's going to read this book? Who am I to write a book? But if you go into writing the book fully to grow yourself, to be an expansion, fully detached from how well the book does, then you become unshakable, unstoppable, unapologetically yourself. You become somebody who can trust yourself to pursue big, challenging goals and to follow through all the way to the end. So, having a goal is just the tip of the iceberg, really. Inside my course, Your Clear Calling, we get into the nitty gritty of being an action in your goals. So, not only do we identify them, we get really clear on them, we also talk about the exact how to of being in action to follow and to pursue your dreams and your goals. And it is so much fun. It truly is the best. And I love seeing my clients thrive with their goals. And some of them are goals that they are surprised by. Like one of my clients just told me that she got a promotion 3 months after she started, and she wasn't even sure at the beginning if she wanted it. And then she got it. And now she said she's the happiest she's ever been in her job. These are the kinds of things that are possible when we really start to get clear, detached, and move forward. And that's really what we cover in the Get Paid for Your Passion framework. So, if you are a high achieving Asian American woman who's ready to finally release the negative cultural conditioning holding you back from thriving in your career and life, and to really get paid for your passion, DM me paid at Nicole Song on Instagram and let's chat because I've got something over there for you. All right, friends, what a start to the new year. I'm so grateful that for you for listening, for being here and growing this community together. Truly, I'm eternally in this deep well of gratitude and expansion being here with all of you. Have the most amazing start to the year, and I'll see you soon.